I don't know pain. I don't know pain. I have no depth of pain. I have no depth of suffering. I don't know ridicule.
On November 20, 1950, California was shaken by a horrific crime that would go down in history as one of the most brutal family massacres in the state's history. The story of the murder of the Clutter family in rural Kansas is often cited as one of the most chilling in true crime history. But in California, another crime would rival it for its gruesome details and impact.
I ask you, how keenly do you miss Sharon today, 50 years on?
I would love to have her here. Sharon was my big sister. Do I miss her? Yes. Would I like her here? Yes. Do I have this pain every day? No, I don't. But it's not far from the surface. Do I want revenge on these people? No, there is no such thing.
This is the story of the Tate LaBianca murders, a crime that shocked the world and changed the landscape of American criminal history forever. On that fateful night in 1969, the peaceful neighborhood of Benedict Canyon in Los Angeles became the scene of one of the most horrific killings ever recorded in the state. At the heart of this tragedy was the Manson family, a cult led by the infamous Charles Manson, whose manipulative and sadistic ways would lead to the deaths of 7 innocent people over a span of 2 nights. This was not a case of robbery gone wrong, nor a conflict between family members. This was a mass murder orchestrated with chilling precision and terrifying intentions. The Manson family, the cult that would kill. Charles Manson, born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio, was a drifter and a failed musician with a long history of criminal behavior. By the time he arrived in California in the late 1960s, he had developed a following. Young, vulnerable people whom he manipulated into believing that he was some kind of messiah. His followers, predominantly women, were known as the Manson family, and they were drawn to him due to his charismatic yet deranged personality. Manson convinced his followers that a race war, which he dubbed Helter Skelter, was imminent. He believed that the murders of wealthy white people would spark this race war, and that the Manson family would be the ones to incite it. It was during this period that Manson began to plot his most notorious crime, the murders of actress Sharon Tate and 4 others. The Tate murders. The first night of horror. Sharon Tate was an up-and-coming actress, widely known for her role in Valley of the Dolls and her marriage to director Roman Polanski. At the time of her murder, Tate was 8 months pregnant. On the night of August 8, 1969, Manson sent several of his followers, including Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten, to Tate's home in Benedict Canyon. The group arrived at the Polanski residence late that evening. With no one home except Tate and her friends, the family made their move. Tate was alone with friends Jay Sebring, an ex-boyfriend and celebrity hairstylist, Abigail Folger, and heiress to the Folger Coffee Company fortune, Wojciech Frykowski, a polished screenwriter, and Stephen Parent, a young man who had been visiting the estate's caretaker. The Manson family members brutally murdered all of them in cold blood. They tied Tate and Frykowski up, and then began a terrifying spree of violence. Frykowski was stabbed numerous times, and Tate, begging for her life and for the life of her unborn child, was also stabbed multiple times. The scene was so grotesque that the police who arrived at the crime scene were left stunned. The killers, fueled by Manson's orders, used the victim's blood to write messages on the walls of the home. Messages like pigs and helter skelter. These chilling words were meant to send a message that the race war Manson believed in was underway. The LaBianca murders. The second night of bloodshed. Just a day after the Tate murders, Manson directed his followers to carry out another killing spree. This time, Lino and Rosemary LaBianca, a middle-aged couple who had no connection to the entertainment industry or any kind of criminal behavior, were the targets. The LaBiancas lived in a home in Los Feliz, Los Angeles, and like the victims of the Tate murders, they were murdered in a brutal and senseless fashion. On August 10, 1969, Manson sent his followers, this time including Krenwinkel and Van Houten, out to kill the LaBiancas. They broke into the house and immediately attacked the couple, stabbing them multiple times. Lino LaBianca was killed in the living room, and his wife, Rosemary, was killed in the bedroom. Like the previous night's murders, the killers used the victims' blood to scrawl messages on the walls, further cementing their ties to Manson's helter-skelter fantasy. Once again, the words helter-skelter were written, along with death to pigs, reinforcing Manson's delusion that a race war was at hand. The crime was just as senseless and brutal as the previous night, and it was clear that Manson's mind was capable of unimaginable cruelty. The arrest and trial. In the aftermath of the murders, law enforcement scrambled to find leads. The brutality of the killings, coupled with the bizarre nature of the messages left at the crime scenes, made it clear that the murders were not random acts of violence. Manson and his followers had left an unmistakable calling card. As detectives worked to unravel the mystery, they found that several members of the Manson family had been involved in previous criminal activity, which eventually led them to the group's compound in the California desert. In October of 1969, Manson, Atkins, Krenwinkel, and several other members of the cult were arrested and charged with the murders. The trial of Charles Manson and his followers was a media sensation. Manson, despite being the mastermind behind the killings, remained defiant and unrepentant throughout the proceedings. He showed no remorse for the deaths of Tate, LaBianca, and the others. His followers, who had once looked up to him as a leader and savior, also showed little remorse, with some even professing that they had acted on his commands. The trial ended in conviction. Manson was sentenced to death, though his sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment after California's death penalty laws were changed in 1972. His followers, too, were sentenced to life in prison, where they would spend decades reflecting on their roles in the murders they had committed. The impact of the murders. The Tate LaBianca murders rocked California and the nation to its core. It was a crime that defied logic, one that seemed beyond comprehension. The media frenzy surrounding the trial catapulted Charles Manson to infamy, and the world watched in horror as details about the murders emerged. Manson's ability to manipulate vulnerable people into committing such horrific acts became a textbook example of how cults prey on the weak and impressionable. The killings also highlighted the darker side of the 1960s counterculture movement. What was once seen as a time of peace and love quickly gave way to a more sinister side, as the Manson family represented the dangers that could arise when idealism mixed with delusion and chaos. The aftermath and legacy. Despite the passage of time, the story of the Tate LaBianca murders continues to haunt California and the United States as a whole. Charles Manson died in 2017 at the age of 83, but his infamy endures. Thank you for joining me today in exploring one of California's darkest moments in history. If you found this story compelling and chilling, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel for more true crime content.